boyfriend, and when I get up there, he's laying in the kitchen all bloody.
We didn't really know what we had or what we were going into.
I looked through the door, and I see like a footprint of blood.
You just don't ever think it could happen to your child.
There was a house that had a camera across the street.
It does not record until it sees motion. The video surveillance removed all doubt who committed the crime.
"27-year-old Corey Lee Hughes is clearing house and moving out of state."
Corey was getting ready to leave that next morning to head to Oregon. He was selling his stuff, and there was friends coming over, get some of the stuff that he was selling that he couldn't take with him.
Hey, Corey.
Hey.
Look, can I give you the rest tomorrow, man?
Yeah, but I'm leaving really, really early.
I could be here by 7:30.
Don't be late.
All right, brother. See you then.
His plan was to go out to Oregon to do a 6-month stint, see if he liked it. If he didn't, then he would just come back home.
He was just pretty stoked. He didn't want to leave his kids behind, though. That was one of his biggest worries.
Corey was a proud dad. He really was, they were his proudest moments.
Megan and Corey recently split up after 5 years together.
Me and Corey had been separated for about 3 weeks. We really tried to make a relationship work towards the end, and we really didn't want to give our family up. All we really wanted to make sure in life was that the kids were happy.
I didn't want him to make that trip out there. I remember our last phone call, him telling me that he loved me and that he would be back.
Yes, sir, I got an emergency. Okay, an emergency. I come over here to talk to my cousin's boyfriend, and when I get up there, I look and there's like a footprint with like blood. So I can't see him to see, and he's laying in the kitchen all bloody. Is he breathing? I don't know. And he's laying face down in a puddle of blood. His name's Corey Hughes.
I came out as a medical assist. We didn't really know what we had or what we were going into. The 911 call came from a friend of the victim, Nathan Robertson. We met him out front of the house.
Down in there in the kitchen, there's blood everywhere. Which brother?
You could see bloody footprints that looked like they were going out the door. He tried not to contaminate any of that stuff. You could see straight into the kitchen. I remember seeing the victim's body laying down, face first in a pool of blood. You could see it looked like an exit wound from a gunshot to the left side of his head. My partner was the first one that went up to the victim. I asked him, I said, is he still breathing? And about that time, the victim, gasped for air.
That fire come in, he's still moving and breathing.
So at that moment in time, we called the paramedics. Didn't try to save his life. We saw no weapons. I didn't see any knives, any guns, anything like that. And when you don't see a weapon, then you know you got something more. My partner and I, we cleared the house, make sure nobody else was inside.
Police department, anybody down here, make stuff new!
There wasn't anybody else in the house. I remember coming back into the living room and they were loading him up to take him to the hospital.
As Corey is rushed to the hospital, Detective Jones and his team arrive on scene.
You could see the pool of blood. A .380 casing is found on the floor within the pool of blood.
There wasn't a gun left at the scene. So that would mean that this is a possible homicide investigation. There were a lot of footprints in the blood leading around and out of the house, which means that Mr. Hughes wasn't shot and then an offender run out immediately. There had to have been time for him to bleed out, and then that person step through that blood and go through the house. The footprints provide a nice imprint of the suspect's shoe pattern, which was very common as the Nike Air Force One.
If we find the shoe with blood on it, we can definitely tie it back to who wore that shoe and possibly who the shooter is.
I didn't see any actual scenes of broken furniture, knocked over chairs, broken glass. Leads us to believe that the offender was allowed into the home, and Mr. Hughes was kind of taken by surprise.
While officers process the scene, detectives speak with the 911 caller.
Nathan Robertson was the first person we're wanting to talk to.
So when you arrived, you just found the door was open a little bit, the main door. Like, I looked through the door, and I seen like a footprint of blood. Right.
He had come to Corey's house to buy a TV. Corey's leaving town. He was flying out of Evansville that morning. We're told Corey was selling his property and that he had cash in the house. So pretty quickly, we believed that this was going to be probably a robbery for his cash.
While officers take Nathan to the station for a formal interview, investigators search the house for evidence that could help identify Corey's shooter.
A wallet was located. The wallet was kind of hidden with $1,500 of cash was in the wallet.
There were drawers open and things of that nature. So the person was there looking for something.
Detectives also recover a cell phone.
Cell phones are very important. They explain phone conversations, text messages, locations of the phone at the time. At 7:17, Corey texted a friend who was taking him to the airport that day. It gives us a time frame. Something that happened after 7:17 and before the 911 call came in at 7:35.
Officers canvass the area for potential witnesses.
We went around the neighborhood asking people if they were out, if they heard anything, but we had nobody that saw anything, that witnessed anything.
Word of Corey's shooting soon reaches his ex-girlfriend, Megan Frazier.
Okay, well, they're down at the hospital with the gentleman.
Can you please tell his family what's going on?
We're trying to figure out what's going on.
I got the phone call from my cousin's ex-wife, Kelly. She said Corey had been shot, and you need to come home.
Is he dead?
No.
He's not dead.
I knew something bad happened, so I went to the hospital. They just made me kind of sit there and wait. Felt like forever. A doctor finally came out and asked me to follow him. And I just remember him telling me, I'm sorry, we did everything we can.
We received word from the hospital that he had passed.
This is now an actual murder investigation.
I went outside looking for security cameras on houses. Anything in that area that will help.
Cameras are invaluable to a case like this, and hopefully the cameras caught something.
There was a house that had a camera to the east of where the victim's house was and across the street. When you see a camera like that, I mean, you do get a little excited.
Hi, ma'am. I was wondering if I could see your CCTV camera footage. It covers this area here, right?
Okay, come on in.
Thank you.
Did it catch anything? Did it catch anybody leaving or entering Corey's house? Any vehicle information? We actually took the DVR from the residence and took it to the police department to be analyzed. The camera's motion activated. Whenever something happened closer to the camera, it would activate.
The camera does not record until it sees motion at some point.
Okay. So Corey texts at 7:17. Nathan's 911 call comes in at 7:33. So let's start at 7 o'clock.
We were very hopeful that that would be a piece of evidence that could lead to solving this.
The last time that Corey texted at 7:17, that was about 20 minutes before the 911 call from Nate Robertson.
We had a pretty tight timeline. We're always going to look right at the beginning of that to see if anyone arriving early, casing, anything of that nature. We're looking for that next clip of data that it recorded or what activated the camera.
Can we start closer to the call-out time?
So we went back to find out where Nate Robertson was parked at.
Zoom in. There's Nate's car.
And there's the ambulance.
Corey's house was 5-6 houses down on the other side of the street. Once we found Nate Robertson's vehicle, it was parked directly in front of Corey's front door. We knew the position of any vehicles that were parked in front of Corey's house prior to Nate Robertson arriving.
Okay. Let's go back a couple of clips.
7:14, motion comes on. There's no vehicle in front of Corey's house.
At this point, we know that, you know, he's alive. He'd been texting his friend.
Click on the next clip. Starts at 7:23.
What's that? Zoom in.
The clip shows a white SUV parked in front of Corey's house. But you could not distinguish the make or model of the vehicle at that time. But we could see the white SUV. You're kind of hoping to see somebody leaving, walking out of Corey's house. But the camera did not pick up anybody walking in or out, and it does not show anybody moving in and around the vehicle.
Let's try the next clip.
After that, the white SUV is gone out of that video. So it's frustrating. It seemed to be too far down for it to actually pick up motion at Corey's house.
Okay. Let's try it from another angle around the same time.
This camera system had multiple camera angles. One of the camera angles actually shot directly out into the street.
That's the same vehicle.
At 7:29, as the white SUV drove past after leaving Corey's house, you got a better image of the vehicle.
Play it again. Freeze.
It was a Chevy Trailblazer. You could see that the rear rim of the passenger side tire was different from the rim of the front tire. It was a darker colored rim.
It has a sunroof, a roof rack, and it appears to be a more extended version of the Chevy Trailblazer. So it appears to have a lot of unique characteristics. But we could not identify the driver.
Zoom in on the tag.
We weren't able to get a license plate number from any of the camera angles. We knew the white SUV had left at 7:29, and the 911 call from Nate Robertson came in at 7:35, so that gives us how quickly after it left that Nate Robertson arrived at the scene. It's a big moment as far as getting information. We definitely needed to locate it and figure out who was driving that SUV.
Can you send me a screen grab of that vehicle?
We sent out a still image of the vehicle to all the department police officers and try to get information on the vehicle with the officers to locate it.
As officers hunt for the SUV, Corey's family arrives at the hospital.
By the time we had gotten down to the hospital, Corey had passed away from the gunshot in his head. They told us that we couldn't see him because he was already at the coroner's office.
I said, I don't care. I said, I want to see my son, bring him, take me to him or something. They said that he was shot in the left temple. And I just couldn't believe it. It's still hard to believe.
Everybody was in shock. Didn't even really know how to take it.
That something like this could happen to, one of my kids. You just don't ever think it could happen to your child.
Who could have done this to him? I mean, we just wondered how, who, and why.
At the crime scene, a woman approaches police with a tip.
She showed up and she was kind of telling us some names of people that we need to find.
Now somebody got a text message and he said he's leaving town. And I'm gonna tell you where they're at. Or I can take somebody there. It's Benjamin Bays.
She gave the name Ben Bays pretty quickly. Ben and Corey were very close friends. She believed Ben Bays could be involved in this situation.
And he's Instagramming that he's leaving town. Benjamin Bays, he's got a tattoo right here. And on his statement says he does have guns.
If somebody says they have a gun and they're going to leave town, going to be a person we're going to investigate.
Police officers race to Ben Bays' last known address.
In dealing with a person of interest of this nature, we want to take a lot of precautions. One, that this person could potentially be armed and whatnot, so we just surround the house and try to call him out to come meet the officers.
Can we talk to the dude in your house? Can we talk to the dude in there?
When speaking to a friend of Ben Bays, James Leslie, he stated that Ben had arrived at his home around 8 or 8:30.
And if he's already got a pistol, I hear about a murder, too. Somebody's involved, okay? There's really guns around, somebody's involved in something stupid.
When he comes in, he was talking about a murder and was in possession of a firearm. That would definitely raise suspicion in thinking that he was involved. We were definitely alerted that one of those firearms could potentially be a murder weapon in the Corey Hughes case. So it was very, very important to secure that residence.
I want lawyers because, like they said, I do have the right to plead my Fifth Amendment because I know for a fact that I have nothing to do with it.
The officers located Ben Bays.
Why am I being arrested? If I'm getting arrested...
You're not being arrested, you're being detained.
Why am I being detained?
Because they want to talk to you.
They detained him in the house. Brought downtown to be questioned.
Were you over there at all yesterday? I've been selling for you off and on for a while. I mean, he's always very good person.
He explained that he was at Corey's house the night before. He'd been staying at Corey's house after breaking up with his girlfriend.
Now, Corey's been selling his stuff recently, right? You know about that, right? Gave her a bunch of clothes, gave me some things. Right. So he's had a lot of money around there. Had you told anybody they had any money around the house? No. Did you tell anybody? No.
While investigators interview Ben Bays, Detectives execute a warrant to search where he was found.
So at the address, we're looking for blood evidence, we're looking for cash, anything that could lead us back to Corey's house that morning.
We'd be looking for cellular phones and other devices capable of transmitting data that could use GPS or whatever to put him in the area at the time. Looking for ammunition that may match the shell casing that was collected at the scene. Guns were recovered from the home where Benjamin Bays was located. Those firearms ended up being BB guns. A BB gun would not be capable of inflicting the injury that Corey Hughes sustained.
At the police department, investigators question Ben about his movements the night before.
We left at 1 o'clock, 1:30, 1:45. I don't even remember. After that, I did not go back. Did you have anything going on all day yesterday and today? I see a change.
Ben explained that after having left the house around 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning, they went to a local convenience store, purchased some items. So we wanted to follow up on his whereabouts the night before.
Detectives visit the store to find CCTV footage that can corroborate Ben's story.
There he is.
We ended up getting footage that showed that him and his friend did leave the house.
Freeze it.
I noticed during that footage, he had on the exact same clothing he had during the interview. Footage of them at the convenience store before is important, that they didn't change clothing. There could be possible evidence on the clothing if he was the shooter.
Investigators find no blood on Ben's clothes, and the pattern of his shoes does not match the bloody prints found at the crime scene.
We're finding no physical evidence to tie Ben Bays to this.
Investigators ask Ben Bays about Corey's associates.
Do you have any idea who was murdered for you? To be honest, no. I really don't. He's uncle, he's chill. And his other brother, and
He indicated that he had been living with Corey over the last couple of days, and that there were a lot of people who were coming and going who were purchasing items from Corey. And so it's important to discover who all these people are.
I mean, I have a few people come over, but there's one I was going to meet up that personally. And the bigger black guy was the guy that was trying to climb up the posture and drop the iPad there. Like, I think that in a way somehow it ties together, but I know nothing about the whole entire story.
Ben's able to describe a black male who was acting a bit odd. So to have an unidentified individual who was kind of acting strange is a very important piece of the puzzle.
Across town, Corey's family struggled with their loss.
We all gathered at my house. We all just kind of held each other up and kept each other going.
Everybody was, ready to lose it. They wanted answers. And they just took a dad away from 3 kids, And those 3 kids have to grow up, knowing that, their daddy's not going to be there.
Back at the police department, Detective Jones receives a tip.
Detective Jones. Yes?
I get a name from an informant of Brandon Brown. He drives a white SUV. Brandon Brown actually knows Corey and knew that he was selling property to move to out of state.
Okay, thanks.
Brandon Brown did have some criminal history that would cause him to be disqualified from possessing a firearm.
Hey, I got a name for you. Brandon Brown.
We looked up phone records and located a phone call from Brandon Brown's phone to Corey that morning at 7:08.
Great, thanks.
So at this point in time, we have a subject that drives a white SUV and has called Corey the morning just prior to him being found shot on the floor.
This was a very, very big break in the case, and we felt that that was something we had to move on very, very quickly.
We have an address. We checked that address several times throughout that day. Could not locate the vehicle. Later that afternoon, one of the officers locates the vehicle. Parked in front of Brandon's house. The rear tire smash was in the video at the scene. As he's sitting there watching the vehicle, he observes Brandon Brown and a female get in the vehicle and they leave the house. So he requests Motor Patrol to stop the vehicle.
The traffic patrol officer pulls over the white SUV with the two occupants.
Hey, you step out the car, man. Stay turn away from it.
He didn't appear nervous, pretty calm, cool, and kind of was accepting of what was happening.
Officers identify the driver as Brandon Brown.
You don't have any ID? You have a driver's license? You have a state ID?
Officers take Brandon and his wife Jessica to the police department. They tow the white SUV to the lab for testing. Corey's loved ones learn that Brandon Brown is in custody.
Brandon Brown wasn't a stranger. Brandon was somebody that me and Corey had like get-togethers with, barbecues. He'd been to birthday parties with us. I mean, anything could help. Even if he didn't do it, maybe he just knows something.
I was very relieved that finally something happened with the case.
Hey, Brandon. How you doing? Good. Hey, I know why you're down here.
He's not stressed at all. He appears forthcoming with information, so you're not really sure if he's involved.
Yeah, we're going to his house. Yeah, I'm good to Corey's house. I'm going to Corey's house Thursday night.
He admits that he was actually at Corey's house the night before. That he is the male that the other people didn't know. So it's exciting to get that information and start putting pieces together. He doesn't know we have footage of his vehicle at the scene before Corey is found.
We got some questions for that. Your truck license. Is there anything on the truck license that makes it stick out? What about the wheels?
My grandfather came over and helped me change that.
Which one was that?
On the passenger side.
So he's given us a fairly accurate description of his vehicle.
Is this your...
It looks like mine, but I remember the white one has one just like ours.
Just like yours?
Yeah.
Has the same tire, same...
Yeah.
He's not acting like that's really their car. There's another guy around town that drives the car that looks just like theirs. And that was probably the first time he showed any signs of getting nervous.
Detectives move to another room to speak with Brandon's wife.
All right, Jessica. My name's Detective Jones. It's Detective It's Jessica, right? I've already met you, but what's your last name?
Jessica was very forthcoming with information. She did not show any signs of deception during our interview with her.
Okay. If this be yours with the missing hubcap?
I showed Jessica a photo from the video surveillance footage of the vehicle leaving Corey's house, and I didn't tell her where it was or anything.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, because we had a flat tire, a blowout, and we had to change the tire. Oh, yeah. So is that a spare tire on there? Yeah, it's a spare tire. Does it have a sunroof as well? Yes, it does.
And she said she was 100% sure it was our car.
Investigators widen their search for CCTV in the hope that it can confirm who was driving.
You really want to confirm that he's the sole occupant of the vehicle. That way, that would rule out anybody who was a passenger possibly being involved.
There's 2 convenience stores in between Corey's house and Brandon's house. So we decide to recover any information from any of the video cameras in the stores for the morning of the incident.
Detectives review the footage back at the station.
At 6:54, the gas station footage puts him 6 blocks away from the scene within just a few minutes of when the other footage captures him just across the street from Corey's house. We were very confident that was the car and that he was the driver. It really removed all doubt that he was the individual that committed the crime.
Investigators execute a warrant to search Brandon's home.
Officers are looking for cash, blood evidence, weapons, clothing with blood on it. During the search, they don't find any clothing with blood on it. He probably discarded that clothing, but they do find 2 firearms. One was a Beretta 9mm, and the other firearm was a Bertha 380. We have a 380 casing at the scene, and one of the firearms recovered is a 380. We send that, along with the casing at the scene and the projectile, which was recovered in Corey's autopsy, to the lab. We confront Brandon Brown with the information that Jessica Brown says that's 100% their vehicle. We have his vehicle at the scene moments before Corey's found, and we also have a gun matching the same caliber of the casing at the scene. He's getting really nervous. He's very uncomfortable now.
Okay. You haven't been 100% true.
At that point, I knew it was time to really start interrogating him in a manner of trying to get to the truth of what happened. Gone over to Corey's house to purchase something and said that he had an odd feeling, so he took a firearm with him.
Just clocked out. Okay, when you say clocked out, what do you mean?
It's like some switch went on and him.
So he was angry?
Corey was acting a little bit strange, and he actually said that Corey had a knife and like slashed at him.
Can you describe it?
Just a kitchen knife.
Okay, so it was a kitchen knife?
And at that point, he just kind of blacked out and heard a bang.
Okay. Did you have a gun?
You got the evidence, man, so...
Is it the 380 from the house?
We both know what that is, man.
It really wasn't very plausible, considering that the scene, there was no sign of a struggle, there was no defensive wounds. It almost appeared that Corey, from the way he would have been shot, would have almost been like from behind.
Investigators charged Brandon Brown with the murder of Corey Lee Hughes. police find no evidence that Jessica Brown or Ben Bays had any knowledge or involvement in Corey's murder. Detectives believe the evidence tells a different story to Brandon's account of how Corey died.
Corey had been on social media, flashing a lot of money around. Brandon made contact with him and went over there with the full intent to rob him.
Hey, Brandon, how are you?
The call was to make sure Corey was still at the house and hadn't left yet. And the ruse was probably to buy something from Corey.
Yeah, okay. I'll see you later then.
As soon as Corey opened the door and he started walking toward the kitchen, Brandon shot him. And then he rifled through the house trying to find money. Time was of the essence, so when he didn't find any, he fled quickly. But 7:29, the camera was activated by motion of the white Chevy Trailblazer, which was crucial in placing Brandon at that scene.
Brandon Brown pleads guilty to murder and is sentenced to 65 years in prison.
The compilation of all the video surveillance really provided a very good timeline. It was a key piece of evidence in placing him at the scene. Without the video, this case would have been very, very difficult to prove.
I really wanted Brandon to understand is everything you took away from my children. When my kids graduate high school, their dad doesn't get to be there. When my daughter gets married, her dad don't get to walk her down the aisle.
It left a huge hole in our family that will never get back.
We'll never have a conversation with him. We'll never be able to give him a hug.
I just miss hanging out with him, you know, all the small things. Holidays, birthdays, everything.
He was my baby, you know. So I just kind of tell myself, you know, Corey's down in Evansville, he's working, and, you know, he's busy. And that helps me get through the day.
Me and my family put together a bloom release for Corey and to let Corey know how much we love him. And that we're gonna do everything we can to make sure that he's not forgotten.
Next time on See No Evil.
This bottom is sitting down on one more game emergency. You need to hurry up, come to here. My son said somebody murdered.
I seen like dried blood.
We know we're going to get absolute facts if the image is captured.
That's shotgun.
This individual has to be identified and quickly.
The night was unusually quiet for Sacramento, California, a stillness that pressed down on the streets like a heavy, unseen hand. Streetlights flickered as if uncertain of their own existence, and the occasional car cut through the silence with a rumble that echoed off the brick facades of shuttered shops. It was the summer of 1998 when the world seemed to turn upside down for one neighborhood, a quiet cul-de-sac where life had always been ordinary, unremarkable, until the call that would shatter its calm. Mary Callahan, 24 petite, with auburn hair that caught the streetlights like fire, vanished without a trace. A simple walk home from her job at the downtown boutique, an errand that should have taken 15 minutes, became the beginning of a nightmare that would haunt this city for decades. Her parents reported her missing that evening, their voices trembling with disbelief, the kind that only a parent who knows something is wrong, yet cannot grasp the details can produce. Police arrived scouring the familiar streets, questioning neighbors who shook their heads in confusion. No signs of struggle, no abandoned belongings, no witness to her disappearance. It was as though the earth had swallowed her whole. The local news picked it up immediately. Young woman disappears on quiet street community in shock. Headlines splashed across the city like a dark wave, carrying with them a mixture of horror and fascination. Investigators combed the scene repeatedly, their flashlights slicing through shadows as they examined every corner of the cul-de-sac. There was a faint disturbance in the flower bed near Mary's apartment, a scuff on the sidewalk, but nothing that definitively pointed to abduction. It was maddening. The lead detective, a veteran named Frank Moreno, paced the streets in the pale light of dawn, coffee cooling in his eyes, scanning for something invisible, something everyone else had missed. He knew instinctively that the key was out there waiting in plain sight, but it refused to reveal itself. Friends described Mary as meticulous, cautious someone who always locked her doors, who never ventured into dangerous territory. This made the disappearance all the more terrifying, all the more inexplicable. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The investigation stretched, consuming resources, leaving detectives awake in dim offices, poring over lists of potential suspects, sifting through interviews, checking alibis, and rechecking them. Every tip was a flicker of hope, only to dissolve into disappointment. The community, initially supportive, began to grow restless, fearful. Mothers clutched their children closer. Teenagers avoided the streets they once roamed freely. A sense of unease settled over Sacramento, a collective shadow that darkened even the brightest days. Media coverage intensified cold case grip Sacramento community, police desperate for leads. The phrase cold case took root, a term that would linger like a stain long after the initial panic faded. Detectives uncovered fragments, a partial fingerprint on a nearby lamppost, a strand of hair that didn't match Mary, a shoe print that belonged to no known make. Each clue, small as it was, became a torch in the darkness, illuminating paths that ultimately led to dead ends. Surveillance footage from a nearby store captured a blurry figure, tall, unidentifiable, crossing the street around the estimated time of her disappearance. Hours of footage revealed nothing more, a ghostly silhouette frozen in a frame, taunting the investigators with its refusal to clarify. Witnesses recounted seeing a stranger loitering in the area, but descriptions varied wildly, each recollection colored by fear and uncertainty. The investigation expanded. Detectives interviewed ex-boyfriends, co-workers, acquaintances, anyone who had ever crossed Mary's path. They uncovered stories of minor arguments, fleeting tensions, but nothing that indicated premeditation or malice. Police dog units were brought in, tracing scents through back alleys and over fences, sniffing out a trail that ultimately dissolved into the wind. Community meetings were held. Flyers were distributed, tip lines were flooded with calls. Some were promising, most were false leads. Yet the sense of urgency never diminished. In the background, a city watched, waited, obsessed with the mystery that had infiltrated its daily life. Then came the oddities that would later gain infamy in the investigation. A series of cryptic letters unsigned appeared at the police station. No fingerprints, no postmarks that could be traced. They contained phrases that were disturbing yet vague. She walks among shadows. The clock never forgets. Detectives pored over them, searching for patterns, trying to decode some hidden message. Experts were brought in, handwriting analysts, linguists, even a retired codebreaker from the military. All offered insight, yet nothing concrete emerged. The letters were a siren in the fog, promising revelation, yet delivering only more questions. They created a narrative of fear and obsession that gripped both the investigators and the public alike. Years passed. Mary's disappearance became a fixture in the city's memory, a wound that refused to heal. Her parents, once hopeful, aged visibly, their grief etched into the lines of their faces. The case file, thick with reports, photographs, and notes, grew heavy with unresolved threads. Detectives moved on to other cases, but the cold case lingered like a phantom. At night, in quiet offices, investigators would revisit the old files, tracing paths they had trodden years before, wondering if something new could emerge from the layers of faded ink and yellowing paper. Every so often, a new tip would surface, a neighbor recalling a detail previously forgotten, a distant relative providing a new piece of information, but none led to resolution. The mystery persisted, insistent and impenetrable. Then, in 2023, a breakthrough occurred, sudden and unanticipated. Advances in DNA technology techniques unimaginable in 1998 allowed scientists to examine evidence previously thought useless. Hair samples, fibers, and other trace elements were reevaluated with a precision that bordered on miraculous. A match was found, a fragment of identity that connected the mystery to a living individual. The discovery reverberated through the police department, a shockwave of disbelief and anticipation. Detectives who had worked the case decades ago were called back, their memories stirred by the sudden possibility of closure. The community, long resigned to silence, waited with bated breath. Media outlets prepared their headlines. Cold case solved after 25 years, DNA breakthrough stuns town. Yet even as the arrest was made, the city remained in a state of awe and unease. The revelation answered questions but left many more in its wake. Who was responsible? Why had this gone unnoticed for so long? How could such a disappearance occur in a neighborhood otherwise so safe, so ordinary? Mary's parents, while grateful for the resolution, could not erase the years of uncertainty, the nights of fear and despair. The community, once unified by daily routines, was forever altered, carrying the knowledge that evil can lurk behind the familiar, that shadows may hide secrets for decades. The streets themselves seemed quieter, more vigilant, yet somehow haunted, echoing the lingering presence of a case that refused to fade. This first part of the voiceover sets the stage for the chilling journey that follows, immersing the audience in the tension, the mystery, and the relentless pursuit of truth that defines a cold case, leaving the echo of unanswered questions resonating long after the first words are spoken. The arrest did not end the story. It only peeled back the first layer of a mystery that had grown wild and tangled over a quarter of a century. The suspect, a man in his early 50s, had no prior record that would have suggested the capacity for such a crime. Neighbors who had known him for years described him as quiet, almost invisible, someone who blended seamlessly into the suburban backdrop. Yet DNA had drawn an invisible line between him and the vanished Mary Callahan, an irrefutable connection that demanded answers. Detectives returned to old crime scene photographs, scrutinizing them as though new eyes could see what decades-old eyes had missed. Every corner of the cul-de-sac, every shadowed doorway, every flickering street lamp was examined for a sign, a clue, a confession waiting to be uncovered. The man's routine was reconstructed meticulously, mapping every movement, every interaction, every night he had been near Mary's path. Witnesses were re-interviewed, some shaking with recognition, some in denial, and new patterns began to emerge, tiny, almost imperceptible, but insistent. The forensic team uncovered traces that had been overlooked, a smudge of soil under Mary's fingernails that matched a rarely accessed garden behind the suspect's house, a fiber on her clothing consistent with a rare textile the man had owned. As these threads coalesced into a narrative, the sense of horror deepened. How could someone live among friends and neighbors seemingly ordinary while hiding a secret that would remain buried for decades? The town reacted in disbelief, their calm routines shattered. Parents withdrew children from evening strolls, co-workers exchanged wary glances, and a city that had long accepted silence found itself grappling with questions of trust and proximity. The phrase cold case was no longer just a label. It was a reminder of the fragility of perception and the depth of human deception. Detectives meticulously recreated the final hours of Mary's life, walking the route she had taken, timing her steps, noting the places she had paused, the streets she had crossed. Every detail was scrutinized for potential anomalies. A local shop owner remembered a delivery van parked unusually, its driver glancing repeatedly toward the cul-de-sac. Another neighbor recalled hearing muffled voices in the early evening, indistinct yet persistent in memory. Slowly, a mosaic emerged, pieces aligning like fragments of a shattered mirror. Interrogations were intense. The suspect's responses measured, controlled, often unsettlingly calm. Beneath this facade, detectives sensed tension, the quiet pressure of guilt that refused to fully manifest, the spaces between words heavy with unspoken admissions. Evidence from the original investigation, once thought inconclusive, gained new weight under modern scrutiny. Photographs were enhanced, overlooked angles, revealed potential handprints. items in Mary's apartment were re-examined for trace DNA. The interplay of technology and persistence breathed life into a case long dormant. Forensic psychologists were called in analyzing behavioral patterns, seeking the rationale that had eluded law enforcement for decades. They painted a picture that was as chilling as it was elusive, a portrait of careful observation, meticulous planning, and the cold logic of someone capable of disappearing into ordinary life after committing an extraordinary violation. The city held its collective breath as each layer of deception was peeled back, revealing glimpses of a dark, hidden world. Public response was intense, fueled by media coverage that detailed each revelation without restraint. Every headline, every broadcast amplified the shock. DNA breakthrough. Solves 25-year-old disappearance suspect's past examined under new forensic lens community. Stunned as truth emerges. The town's narrative of safety and trust was forever altered. Parents whispered warnings to children who had grown up with Mary's story as a cautionary tale, and strangers were met with suspicion. Even as the legal process moved forward, the community grappled with the unsettling realization that a quiet, familiar street could hide such profound darkness. The case had become more than a mystery. It had evolved into a study of human complexity, a reminder that evil can often masquerade as mundane and that the passage of time does not always equate to understanding. Mary's family, enduring the dual experience of grief and delayed justice, faced the resurgence of public scrutiny. Interviews were arranged with care letters from well-wishers poured in, yet each day brought renewed confrontation with the unresolved trauma of the past. The suspect's family, too, faced an intense media gaze, forced to reconcile the life they thought they knew with the revelation of a hidden reality. Courtrooms became stages where decades-old pain collided with modern forensic science. Prosecutors presented meticulous reconstructions, visualizations of Mary's last known movements, and compelling interpretations of trace evidence. Defense attorneys countered with strategies of doubt, emphasizing the passage of time and the potential for contamination or misinterpretation. Yet the weight of scientific proof loomed large. Each testimony, each revelation added layers of intensity to a drama that had unfolded in shadows for 25 years. Throughout the investigation, new questions emerged. How had the suspect evaded detection for so long? Were there warning signs that had been overlooked? What other pieces of the puzzle might still lie hidden? Detectives returned repeatedly to the cul-de-sac to the places Mary had frequented, seeking patterns that had escaped initial notice. Their persistence painted a portrait of methodical examination, patience, and obsession, a determination to honor a life interrupted and a community unsettled. Public interest remained high, the story dominating conversations, online forums, and town meetings. Every minor detail was scrutinized, every recollection re-examined. Fear mingled with fascination as Sacramento navigated the implications of having a predator in its midst, hidden in plain sight. Psychological evaluations revealed chilling insights into the suspect's behavior, uncovering tendencies of manipulation, meticulous planning, and a deep understanding of human perception. The notion that a crime of such magnitude could be committed in ordinary circumstances struck a nerve in both law enforcement and civilians alike. Investigators dissected routines, analyzing what had enabled the suspect to remain undetected for decades, seeking lessons that could prevent future tragedies. Mary's disappearance, once a cold, unsolved case file, became a touchstone for the evolution of forensic science community awareness and investigative technique. It highlighted both the limitations and the possibilities inherent in modern law enforcement, blending human intuition with technological advancement. As the investigation progressed, the city grappled with a paradoxical sense of closure and lingering unease. Arrests had been made, connections established, yet the emotional landscape remained turbulent. Mary's absence left an unfillable void. Her presence reconstructed only through memories, photographs, and the painstaking work of detectives lingered in the collective consciousness. The case became a narrative of patience, persistence, and the relentless pursuit of truth, a reminder that some mysteries, no matter how long they endure, demand resolution. Even as court proceedings advanced towards judgment, the community absorbed the reverberations, recognizing that the shock of discovery does not erase the trauma of loss. Sacramento, once an ordinary suburban town, had been transformed by the revelation of hidden darkness, the echo of a cold case resonating far beyond the streets where it had begun. Through this, the investigation reinforced the notion that time, while a formidable barrier, could be overcome. Advances in technology combined with human determination could resurrect evidence long considered dormant. Detectives who had once feared the case might fade into obscurity found renewed purpose, their work culminating in a mixture of vindication and sorrow. Mary's story, emblematic of countless unsolved mysteries, became a symbol of both the fragility and the resilience of truth. The city learned that vigilance and compassion combined with scientific innovation could eventually pierce the veil of time. And yet, even as answers emerged, the emotional imprint of the years lost remained indelible, a haunting reminder that while cases can be solved, the passage of life altered irrevocably cannot be restored. The courtroom was thick with anticipation, the air electric, as if the building itself held its breath. Reporters jockeyed for position cameras, clicking microphones poised to capture every word, every reaction. Mary's parents sat at the front, their faces etched with fatigue, hope, and the shadow of long-standing grief. Detectives observed quietly, their notebooks filled with decades of meticulous observation, every entry now coalescing into a narrative that had waited 25 years to be told. As the prosecution laid out its case, each piece of DNA evidence, each trace fiber, each long-forgotten footprint was presented with unwavering clarity. The audience could feel the weight of the years, the slow, insidious passage of time that had transformed a vibrant young woman into a symbol of unanswered questions and lingering fear. Witness after witness took the stand. Neighbors previously interviewed in the initial investigation recounted memories sharpened by decades of reflection. Some had dismissed early suspicions, now burdened by guilt for what they had overlooked. Others revealed new insights, tiny observations that, when assembled, revealed patterns previously invisible. The suspect's demeanor was composed, controlled, and unnerving calm that contrasted sharply with the tension radiating from the courtroom. His attorney probed every inconsistency, challenging the validity of evidence, seeking cracks in the forensic foundation that prosecutors had so painstakingly built. Yet despite the legal maneuvering, the science spoke clearly. The DNA was undeniable, linking the suspect to the crime in a manner that no argument could easily dislodge. Outside, the city watched captivated and unsettled. News crews broadcast live, citizens huddled around televisions in living rooms, bars, and workplaces. Social media discussions erupted, some expressing relief at the prospect of closure, others grappling with disbelief and lingering fear. The phrase "cold case solved" became a chorus echoing through the streets, a mantra that carried both triumph and unease. Sacramento, a city that had once known quiet, ordinary nights, now grappled with the reality that darkness had lingered in its midst, patient, cunning, and almost imperceptible. Parents whispered warnings to children, colleagues questioned long-held assumptions about safety, and every familiar street now held a hint of suspicion, a residue of fear lingering in the corners and shadows. Back in the courtroom, the prosecution presented a timeline reconstructing Mary's last known movements with precision. Hours, minutes, seconds mapped with chilling accuracy. Surveillance footage, once grainy and indecipherable, was enhanced using cutting-edge technology, revealing previously hidden details. A shadow flitting across a fence, the suspect's reflection in a shop window, subtle anomalies that now fit into a larger, horrifying puzzle. The audience gasped at each revelation, the tension building as detectives and forensic experts demonstrated the meticulous assembly of evidence. Every piece fit together like a sinister jigsaw, forming a picture that had been obscured by time, but never erased. The emotional resonance was profound. Mary's parents listened as the details unfolded, a mixture of relief and pain washing over them. Relief that the perpetrator had been identified, that the long silence had been broken. Pain for the years lost, the absence endured, the milestones Mary would never experience. Detectives felt a similar duality, a professional satisfaction tempered by the haunting reminder that no evidence could restore the life that had been taken, that no confession could fully erase the years of uncertainty and anguish. The courtroom became more than a legal battleground. It was a stage upon which decades of human emotion, fear, and resilience converged, each testimony, a thread in a tapestry of loss, discovery, and relentless pursuit of truth. As the trial progressed, forensic experts detailed the breakthroughs that had finally cracked the case open. New DNA techniques, once theoretical, were applied to decades-old samples. Microscopic fibers, soil traces, and other minute details, once dismissed as inconclusive, were now irrefutable indicators. The audience could almost hear the whisper of evidence speaking across time, a testimony to human perseverance and technological evolution. Each revelation struck the courtroom with the force of inevitability, the past colliding with the present in a dramatic unveiling of long-hidden truths. Detectives sitting quietly in the back exchanged glances, memories of painstaking nights and cold streets, intermingling with a sense of vindication, a closure that was professional, yet deeply personal. The defense attempted to introduce doubt, suggesting contamination, degradation, or misinterpretation of evidence. They questioned timelines, motives, and the reliability of human memory. Yet each challenge was met with meticulous documentation, lab reports, and corroborating witnesses that reinforced the narrative of truth. The tension in the room was palpable. Jurors leaned forward, absorbing every nuance, every fact presented with clarity and gravity. The legal dance unfolded with precision, but beneath it lay the deeper human story. A community scarred, a family longing for closure, a detective force vindicated by persistence, and a suspect whose life had been meticulously intertwined with deception for decades. Even as the trial unfolded, the town outside wrestled with its own complex emotions. Streets that once felt familiar now carried an undertone of caution. Conversations at cafes and schools and at workplaces frequently circled back to Mary's case, a shared narrative binding residents in collective shock and reflection. Fear, curiosity, relief, and sorrow mingled, creating an atmosphere heavy with the resonance of events that had spanned generations. Citizens pondered how ordinary life had masked extraordinary malice, how time could distort perception, and how the combination of human determination and scientific progress had finally pierced the veil that had long concealed the truth. The suspect, facing the cumulative weight of evidence, began to reveal cracks in his composure. Subtle gestures, fleeting expressions, a hesitation in speech betrayed the underlying tension. Detectives observed intently, noting every deviation, every nuance, understanding that the human element often spoke louder than forensic proof alone. Cross-examinations probed psychological vulnerabilities, exploring motivations, patterns, and inconsistencies. The courtroom became a psychological arena, each participant navigating the intricate interplay between fact perception and human emotion. The audience, both present and remote, felt the intensity of each revelation, the suspense tightening like a coiled spring with every passing moment. As the trial unfolded, the city seemed suspended in a state of collective anticipation each day, stretching into a tension-laden rhythm where time itself felt distorted. Sacramento, once unremarkable in its quiet rhythms, now pulsed with the heavy awareness of a long-hidden darkness. The shadow of Mary Callahan's disappearance, casting an invisible veil over streets, shops, and homes. Detectives revisited the original crime scenes with renewed purpose, walking the paths Mary had taken, noting subtle changes in the landscape, recalling overlooked details that suddenly gained significance under the scrutiny of fresh perspective and modern analysis. Every corner, every tree, every lamppost became a potential keeper of secrets, an accomplice to the silence that had persisted for 25 years. Witnesses were re-interviewed, some trembling at memories they had buried, others cautiously revisiting moments once deemed insignificant, only now understood as potentially pivotal. The prosecution emphasized the pattern of deception, the meticulous planning, and the subtle manipulations that allowed a crime so heinous to remain hidden for decades. DNA evidence was presented alongside reconstructed timelines, surveillance footage, and detailed reconstructions of Mary's last known movements. Microscopic fibers, soil samples, and minute traces of materials became silent witnesses, testifying across time to the events that had unfolded on that quiet summer night. The audience could almost feel the presence of Mary's absence, the chilling void she left behind, and the relentless pursuit of justice that had refused to relent despite years of silence. Each piece of evidence was laid bare, a brick in the foundation of truth, compelling, undeniable, and profoundly unsettling. Community members followed the trial with a mixture of fascination and dread, absorbing each development with the intensity of those who had lived through the shadow of uncertainty for decades. Public spaces buzzed with discussion. Cafes, offices, and living rooms echoed with speculation and reflection. The phrase cold case had evolved from a technical term to a symbol of endurance of the tension between time memory and justice. Fear and relief intermingled as the city reconciled with the reality that someone familiar, someone seemingly ordinary, had been capable of harboring a secret so devastating. Sacramento was forever changed. Trust was redefined, vigilance heightened, and the ordinary streets seemed imbued with a subtle, persistent unease that lingered long after the initial shock. Detectives meticulously reconstructed the final hours of Mary's life, analyzing subtle clues that had once been dismissed: a faint footprint near a back fence, a smudge on a garden gate, the precise timing of a delivery truck that passed the cul-de-sac at a critical moment. Witness accounts were re-examined, correlations drawn between seemingly isolated observations forming a mosaic that had been invisible in its fragmented state. The suspect's movements reconstructed through interviews, financial records, and surveillance revealed an intricate choreography, a careful orchestration of appearances and absences that had allowed him to evade detection for decades. The depth of planning, the cold precision, was as unsettling as it was compelling, highlighting the interplay between opportunity cunning and the limitations of human observation. Inside the courtroom, every revelation brought waves of emotion. Mary's parents, listening to the painstakingly reconstructed events, experienced a mixture of closure and renewed grief. The relief of knowing after 25 years who had been responsible was tempered by the reminder of time lost, moments unexperienced, milestones unattained. Detectives observed quietly, their satisfaction shadowed by the enduring reality of human loss. Each forensic demonstration, each expert testimony reinforced the narrative of methodical investigation and unyielding persistence. The weight of decades of unanswered questions pressed down, yet each revelation brought a tangible sense of progress, a reaffirmation that truth, no matter how delayed, could emerge with clarity and force. Media coverage intensified, capturing every nuance, every gesture, every emotional tremor. Headlines blazed across newspapers and television screens. Cold case solved. After 25 years, DNA breakthrough confirms suspect. Decades of silence shattered in Sacramento courtroom, community grapples with revelations long concealed. Citizens absorbed the unfolding drama, their curiosity mingled with fear, reflecting on how ordinary life had been infiltrated by hidden malevolence. Conversations across the city carried the tension, each resident grappling with the unsettling notion that darkness can thrive in plain sight, invisible until meticulously revealed. The community's engagement transformed the case into a shared narrative, a collective reckoning with the interplay of time perception and human vulnerability. Psychological analysis provided deeper insight into the suspect's mind, revealing traits of meticulous planning, control, and a profound understanding of social invisibility. Experts discussed how ordinary appearances can mask extraordinary malice, how routine and familiarity can cloak malevolent intent. Detectives considered these insights alongside tangible evidence, piecing together the behavioral and forensic dimensions of the case. The synthesis of science, psychology, and human observation created a compelling portrait of a crime that had remained hidden for decades, demonstrating both the limits and the possibilities inherent in investigative work. Each revelation reinforced the central tension that evil, patient, and cunning can exist unnoticed, and that persistent human effort combined with technological advancement is necessary to unearth it. As the trial continued, subtle details commanded attention: the alignment of streetlights at critical intersections, the timing of deliveries, the peculiarities of pedestrian traffic, the precise moments when shadows fell across fences and windows. Each factor, minute in isolation, coalesced into a narrative of precision, control, and premeditation. Detectives walk the paths again and again, reenacting Mary's route, reconstructing the spatial and temporal dimensions of the crime, with painstaking care. The city in turn internalized these revelation streets once familiar. Now perceived through the lens of caution and awareness, the ordinary imbued with subtle menace the memory of what had transpired, a persistent reminder of vulnerability and vigilance. The emotional resonance of the trial deepened as personal testimonies recounted Mary's character, her habits, her warmth, and her presence in the community. Family, friends, and colleagues painted a vivid portrait of a life disrupted, a potential unrealized. Each recollection served as both tribute and testimony, emphasizing the human cost of unresolved mysteries and the importance of closure. Detectives and prosecutors, drawing from years of painstaking work, highlighted the significance of persistent investigation, demonstrating how technology and human intuition combined to illuminate truths once hidden. The courtroom became a stage where evidence, emotion, and ethical inquiry intersected, compelling both participants and observers to confront the complexities of justice delayed and the resilience required to pursue it relentlessly. In this part of the story, the narrative continues unbroken. Tension heightened, immersing listeners in the relentless unraveling of a decades-old mystery. The voiceover carries the audience through the labyrinth of investigation, discovery, and psychological insight, blending forensic detail with human emotion, ensuring that the chilling resonance of the cold case lingers in the mind long after the story is told. The court proceedings intensified as the prosecution delved deeper into the suspect's past, tracing connections, behaviors, and patterns that had gone unnoticed for decades. Every detail, no matter how minute, became a testament to meticulous observation and relentless pursuit of truth. Detectives presented the timeline of Mary Callahan's last day, reconstructed with painstaking accuracy. Each hour, each movement analyzed, each intersection of human presence and absence scrutinized. Small inconsistencies in witness accounts were examined under the lens of decades of experience, revealing subtle shifts almost imperceptible that hinted at previously overlooked interactions. The narrative was relentless, a steady current of tension compelling every listener to follow the intricate web that had concealed the truth for 25 long years. Mary's disappearance had left a scar on the city's collective consciousness, one that the courtroom now illuminated with stark clarity. Neighbors, once passive observers of a quiet street, recounted the events with a mix of fear and reflection, the passage of time sharpening memories rather than dulling them. Some remembered the fleeting appearance of a stranger in the area, others the unusual absence of familiar routines, the subtle anomalies that only hindsight could render significant. Each testimony reinforced the idea that even the most ordinary environments can conceal extraordinary secrets, and that the vigilant eye of the investigator must persist beyond the immediate horizon of fear or uncertainty. Forensic evidence continued to dominate the proceedings, each new revelation adding weight to a narrative painstakingly assembled over decades. Microscopic fibers, soil samples, and fragments of DNA once considered inconclusive now formed an undeniable web of connections. Experts demonstrated how the application of modern techniques to old evidence created a bridge across time, linking past events with present understanding. The courtroom, a theater of human attention, seemed to pulse with the intensity of discovery, each observation, each slide of evidence amplifying the sense of inevitability and finality. The audience could almost feel the long years of uncertainty and suspense, the emotional gravity of lives suspended in limbo finally converging toward resolution. Mary's family watched with a mixture of relief, grief, and enduring sorrow. The arrest of the suspect brought closure in some sense, yet the loss of time, experiences, and potential could never be fully recovered. Parents, siblings, friends all bore the imprint of uncertainty, the shadow of an absence that had extended far beyond a single night. Their presence in the courtroom, attentive and resolute, underscored the human dimension of forensic triumphs. Justice, when finally achieved, did not erase the emotional toll. It contextualized it, framing years of fear, anticipation, and unanswered questions within the framework of resolution, however partial or delayed it might be. The suspect's demeanor in court was an unsettling study in contrast to the mounting evidence. Composed, controlled, almost indifferent at times, he revealed little emotion, yet subtle cues, the tightness of a jaw, a fleeting glance, a hesitated breath betrayed a simmering tension. Detectives trained to observe and interpret such nuances recorded each detail, aware that human behavior often communicates truths beyond words or physical evidence. Psychologists provided insights into behavioral patterns, analyzing tendencies toward manipulation, concealment, and strategic planning, underscoring the depth of premeditation and the cold precision that had allowed this crime to remain hidden for decades. Media coverage captured every moment, amplifying the emotional and informational impact of the trial. Headlines screamed across print and digital platforms, "Cold case solved." After 25 years, suspect DNA confirmed Sacramento community, reckons with decades-old mystery closure, and unease intertwine in landmark trial. The public absorbed each revelation with a mixture of fascination, shock, and reflection. Streets that had once seemed ordinary were now infused with caution and heightened awareness, the familiar overlaid with a persistent sense of vigilance. Conversations in homes, workplaces, and public spaces frequently returned to Mary's story, an emblem of the tension between ordinary life and hidden malevolence. Re-examination of the original evidence continued to yield subtle insights. Footprints, hair samples, soil traces, and other minute details were cross-referenced with modern databases, creating a detailed map of movement, timing, and association. Investigators traced patterns of opportunity, proximity, and observation, connecting the suspect's presence to critical moments in Mary's final hours. These revelations highlighted both the passage of time and the enduring capacity of human investigation to penetrate long-concealed truths. Each analytical breakthrough presented methodically in court reinforced the narrative of diligence, persistence, and the interplay between human intuition and scientific innovation. The psychological dimension of the trial deepened as experts elaborated on the suspect's motivations, behavioral patterns, and social strategies. Their analysis offered chilling insight into how ordinary appearances can conceal extraordinary malice, how familiarity can cloak malevolence, and how subtle manipulation can delay discovery for decades. The courtroom became a crucible for understanding where empirical evidence and human emotion intersected, demanding attention, empathy, and critical scrutiny from every participant. The story of Mary Callahan, reconstructed with painstaking care, emerged as both a cautionary tale and a testament to the resilience of human inquiry. Public attention remained unbroken. Community members engaged in discussions, debates, and reflections on the lessons learned from the case. The term cold case had transformed in the collective imagination, representing both the haunting persistence of unresolved mysteries and the triumph of determined, methodical investigation. Parents, neighbors, and colleagues reflected on how ordinary routines could mask extraordinary danger, and how vigilance, patience, and technology could ultimately restore truth to long-hidden narratives. The city absorbed the revelations its streets and citizens now subtly altered by the interplay of memory, observation, and revelation. The atmosphere in the courtroom grew heavier as the prosecution shifted focus toward the suspect's methods, detailing the precision and patience that had allowed the crime to remain undetected for a quarter of a century. Each exhibit, each slide, each meticulously documented fact built an almost unbearable tension, pressing down on the audience with the weight of delayed revelation. Detectives recounted the painstaking work of revisiting old crime scenes, interviewing witnesses anew, and cross-referencing decades of reports with the benefit of modern forensic technology. Every detail mattered: a faint footprint in the dirt, a misplaced glove, a subtle change in lighting at a critical time. These minutiae, previously overlooked, now emerged as critical indicators, each reinforcing the narrative of methodical planning and deliberate concealment. The narrative of Mary Callahan's last hours unfolded with a harrowing clarity, reconstructed through interviews, evidence, and digital enhancements that brought the past into startling focus. Surveillance footage, once grainy and indecipherable, revealed glimpses of movement, subtle anomalies that now fit into a coherent timeline. The audience could almost feel the tension of that night, the chill of anticipation, the sense of an ordinary street transformed into a landscape of fear and potential danger. Witness accounts revisited with the clarity of hindsight painted a complex picture of interaction, observation, and concealment, each memory a thread in the tapestry of a crime hidden in plain sight for decades. Mary's family sat with stoic determination, their expressions a complex blend of relief, sorrow, and the enduring shadow of grief. Every piece of evidence presented was a reminder of what had been lost, the time, experiences, and milestones that Mary would never enjoy. Detectives watching quietly felt the duality of professional satisfaction and personal reflection. The triumph of unearthing the truth was intertwined with the haunting reality of irretrievable years. The courtroom itself became a stage where human emotion and forensic science intersected, each element reinforcing the gravity and intensity of the case. The slow, deliberate unraveling of decades of mystery captured the attention of every participant, creating a palpable sense of suspense and engagement. The suspect's composure remained unnervingly consistent, yet subtle cues betrayed an underlying tension. A flicker of the eye, a delayed response, a tightened fist, small, almost imperceptible indicators that observers trained in human behavior could detect and interpret. Psychological profiles provided insight into tendencies toward meticulous planning, manipulation, and the exploitation of ordinary appearances to conceal extraordinary malice. Detectives and experts combined these insights with empirical evidence to construct a comprehensive understanding of the suspect's actions, revealing how careful observation, patience, and strategic concealment had allowed a crime of this magnitude to persist undetected for decades. Outside the courtroom, the city's collective attention remained fixed on the unfolding drama. Media outlets broadcast developments in real time, citizens engaged in conversations at workplaces, homes, and public spaces, and the phrase "cold case solved" reverberated through the public consciousness with both relief and apprehension. Sacramento, once marked by ordinary, predictable rhythms, now carried an enduring awareness of vulnerability, the realization that hidden malevolence can reside even in familiar, seemingly safe spaces. This awareness reshaped community behavior, infusing everyday routines with subtle caution, a heightened perception, and the lingering presence of unresolved questions, now partially addressed, but never fully erased. Detectives revisited every inch of Mary's route, tracing steps, noting environmental changes, and mapping interactions that had seemed inconsequential at the time. Each detail, when examined in context, contributed to a complex narrative of opportunity observation and deliberate evasion. The meticulous reconstruction of movement, timing, and spatial dynamics provided both the courtroom and the community with a visceral understanding of the crime's execution. The interplay of human insight, technological advancement, and analytical rigor highlighted the extraordinary lengths to which both perpetrators and investigators navigate the landscape of truth and deception. In-depth forensic analysis became a cornerstone of the trial. DNA, fiber, and soil evidence were presented with rigorous methodology, cross-referenced against both historical records and contemporary databases. Each revelation carried the weight of decades, bridging past and present in a continuous narrative of discovery. The courtroom became a vessel for the story of persistence, dedication, and the eventual triumph of methodical investigation over time's obfuscation. Every participant, from jurors to legal counsel, could sense the intensity of the accumulated years, the gravity of evidence painstakingly gathered, and the emotional resonance of lives irrevocably altered by the events of that night in 1998. The trial reached a fevered pitch as the prosecution presented the intricate network of evidence, a web spun over decades that now converged with undeniable clarity. Each slide, photograph, and forensic demonstration was met with hushed attention. The weight of years condensed into a sequence of revelations that demanded focus. Detectives recounted the painstaking analysis of witness statements, forensic reports, and overlooked clues, demonstrating how modern techniques allowed them to reconstruct a night long obscured by time. The courtroom seemed to pulse with anticipation, a collective consciousness attuned to the slow, deliberate unraveling of a mystery that had haunted Sacramento for a quarter century. Mary's life was resurrected in narrative form, a vivid tableau of ordinary routines disrupted by extraordinary events. Her friends and family described her habits, her interactions, the warmth she brought to those around her, each memory punctuated by the long absence imposed by her disappearance. Every recollection served both as a tribute and a stark reminder of what had been stolen by years of uncertainty. Detectives emphasized how these seemingly ordinary details were critical to understanding the context of her last known movements, the subtle patterns that had allowed a perpetrator to operate undetected. The courtroom became a space where personal memory and empirical evidence intertwined, creating a tapestry of tension, empathy, and revelation. Outside, the city absorbed the trial with a mixture of fascination and unease. Media coverage was relentless, capturing every testimony, every exhibit, every nuanced reaction. Citizens discussed developments in workplaces, cafes, and homes, reflecting on the fragility of safety and the complexity of human behavior. The phrase cold case had transformed from a technical term into a symbol of enduring mystery and the relentless pursuit of justice. Sacramento, once comfortable in its routine, now navigated an altered reality. The familiar streets imbued with the subtle resonance of hidden danger and the persistence of unanswered questions finally confronting resolution. Forensic experts detailed the application of cutting-edge technology to decades-old evidence. DNA analysis, microscopic fiber examination, and soil sample correlations were presented with precision, demonstrating how modern science could resurrect truth from what had once seemed unknowable. The audience could almost feel the weight of time lifting as hidden patterns emerged, revealing the choreography of a crime carefully executed and meticulously concealed. The suspect's actions, reconstructed through forensic and psychological analysis, painted a portrait of calculated precision, cold logic, and human cunning, a disturbing juxtaposition against his ordinary exterior. The psychological dimension deepened as experts elaborated on behavioral tendencies, manipulation strategies, and the exploitation of social invisibility. The courtroom absorbed these insights, understanding that the passage of decades had not diminished the clarity of the patterns once hidden. Detectives and prosecutors wove these behavioral observations into the narrative of evidence, demonstrating how human insight combined with technological advances could illuminate truths long concealed. Each revelation added tension, clarity, and a chilling depth to the story, reinforcing the sense that meticulous observation and unwavering persistence were crucial in the pursuit of justice. Witnesses recounted subtle anomalies in Mary's environment on the night of her disappearance. A delivery van parked unusually, a distant figure observed from a second-story window, the brief echo of voices in an otherwise silent neighborhood. When pieced together, these fragments formed a mosaic that revealed the timing, opportunity, and movements of both victim and perpetrator. Detectives retraced these paths with methodical care, mapping every step, noting environmental factors, and correlating observations across time and space. Each element, once isolated, gained profound significance when considered as part of the comprehensive reconstruction of events. Mary's family observed the proceedings with enduring resolve, their emotions a complex interplay of hope, sorrow, and the long shadow of grief. The details of the reconstruction were difficult to absorb, yet the clarity brought a measure of closure. The detectives' meticulous presentation of facts and patterns allowed the family to witness the culmination of years of effort, the tangible manifestation of relentless pursuit and analytical precision. While the emotional wounds remained, the truth, emerging from decades of mystery, offered a foundation upon which healing, recognition, and acknowledgement of loss could be built. The courtroom drama continued, each exchange, cross-examination, and presentation of evidence, maintaining the relentless momentum of tension. The suspect, measured yet occasionally revealing fleeting expressions of unease, provided a study in controlled behavior under immense scrutiny. Legal strategies unfolded with calculated precision, each party seeking to frame the narrative in their favor. Yet the accumulation of decades of investigation, modern forensic breakthroughs, and the intricate reconstruction of events left little room for ambiguity. The story of Mary Callahan's disappearance, long a shadow over Sacramento, now manifested in concrete evidence and human testimony, compelling, immersive, and undeniably harrowing. The courtroom was charged with a palpable intensity as the prosecution turned to the finer details of the case, drawing on decades of investigation and modern forensic breakthroughs. Every fiber, footprint, and trace element was methodically presented, demonstrating the meticulous care and unwavering persistence that had finally illuminated a path through years of uncertainty. Detectives walked the jury and observers through Mary Callahan's final hours, reconstructing her steps with precision and revealing the subtle interactions and anomalies that had initially been overlooked. The tension was nearly tangible, each revelation peeling back another layer of mystery that had long cloaked Sacramento in uncertainty and unease. Mary's life emerged vividly through witness recollections, photographs, and forensic evidence. Friends and family painted a picture of a woman whose daily routines, habits, and warmth made her disappearance all the more incomprehensible. Each testimony highlighted not only the tragedy of loss, but also the resilience of memory and observation over time. The prosecution wove these recollections into the broader forensic narrative, emphasizing how seemingly ordinary details, an errant package, a fleeting shadow, a pause on a street corner, could carry profound significance when examined with rigor, technology, and careful scrutiny. Outside the courtroom, Sacramento continued to absorb the weight of the revelations. Citizens engaged in discussions that oscillated between shock, fear, and admiration for the perseverance of investigators. The term cold case had become a touchstone of shared consciousness, symbolizing not only a crime long unsolved, but also the eventual triumph of diligence, patience, and technological advancement. Families, neighbors, and colleagues reflected on the subtle vulnerabilities of everyday life, recognizing that ordinary routines can conceal extraordinary danger, and that justice may come only to those who persistently seek it. Forensic experts demonstrated the precision with which they had re-examined decades-old evidence. DNA samples, fiber analysis, and trace elements were revisited and enhanced using cutting-edge technology, revealing a coherence previously invisible. Every small anomaly once dismissed as inconsequential now carried the weight of proof. The courtroom audience felt the gravity of these revelations. Decades of uncertainty and speculation were crystallized into irrefutable conclusions, a testament to the intersection of science, human observation, and relentless investigative effort. The suspect's demeanor remained controlled, yet subtle shifts betrayed tension. Psychologists and behavioral analysts dissected his patterns, highlighting a meticulous, strategic mind capable of blending into ordinary environments while orchestrating extraordinary deception. The courtroom witnessed the synthesis of empirical evidence and human behavioral analysis, a convergence that laid bare the interplay between cunning opportunity and observation. Detectives emphasized how the passage of time had not eroded clarity, but rather had enhanced understanding through the application of methodical analysis and modern techniques. Witness accounts continued to illuminate the circumstances of Mary's disappearance. Neighbors described unusual observations: a delivery truck parked at atypical times, distant voices, or fleeting glimpses of movement. When correlated with forensic evidence, these fragments formed a compelling mosaic of activity, timing, and interaction. Detectives meticulously reconstructed Mary's route, analyzing environmental variables, lighting conditions, and spatial relations to map the events that had led to her disappearance. The precision and depth of this reconstruction underscored the extraordinary diligence required to solve a case dormant for 25 years. Mary's family experienced a range of emotions as the trial proceeded: relief that progress had been made, sorrow at the decades-long void, and the enduring weight of grief compounded by the emotional intensity of the courtroom. The prosecution's thorough presentation allowed them to witness the painstaking work of investigators, the rigorous assembly of evidence, and the intricate understanding of human behavior that collectively unveiled long-hidden truths. While the years lost could never be recovered, the clarity provided a measure of closure and recognition of the life disrupted and the efforts undertaken to restore justice. Media coverage remained relentless, capturing each testimony and every forensic revelation. Headlines resonated with a mixture of shock and validation. Cold case cracked. DNA breakthrough uncovers decades-old mystery. Sacramento community confronts unsettling truths. Persistence of investigation brings closure after 25 years. The city's daily life was interwoven with awareness reflection and the lingering tension of understanding that hidden darkness can exist in familiar spaces, only to be revealed through human diligence and technological advancement. The case became a narrative touchstone, illustrating both the vulnerabilities and the resilience of the community in the face of hidden malevolence. The courtroom continued to be a theater of meticulous reconstruction, where human observation, forensic science, and psychological insight converged. Detectives highlighted the timing patterns and deliberate movements that had allowed a crime of profound impact to remain concealed for decades. Each revelation reinforced the broader lesson that patient, methodical, and scientifically informed investigation can ultimately pierce the veil of time and deception. Listeners absorbed in the voiceover narrative are drawn deeper into the tension, understanding, and emotional complexity that defined the 25-year odyssey toward justice. The trial's intensity deepened as the prosecution layered additional evidence, weaving decades of investigation into a coherent, compelling narrative. Every detail, no matter how small, carried significance: traces of fibers on a windowsill, a smudge on a fence, a fleeting shadow captured on grainy surveillance footage, all converging to reconstruct the final hours of Mary Callahan's life. The courtroom seemed to pulse with anticipation, each revelation layering tension upon the last, the collective focus of jurors, observers, and legal counsel sharpened by the weight of decades-long mystery finally exposed. Mary's presence was vividly recalled through testimony, photographs, and personal anecdotes. Friends described her routines, laughter, and interactions, each memory reinforcing the stark contrast between her life and the sudden void created by her disappearance. Every detail of ordinary life now bore the weight of profound significance. Detectives meticulously highlighted how these fragments of normalcy became clues when analyzed against forensic evidence, establishing a timeline that revealed the calculated orchestration behind the crime. The ordinary streets, once familiar, now took on a chilling dimension as each small observation connected to the suspect's movements and intentions. The city outside the courtroom mirrored the story's tension. Sacramento, absorbed in live broadcasts and social media coverage, wrestled with shock, apprehension, and the collective realization that hidden threats had existed within the mundane fabric of daily life. Conversations in cafes, homes, and workplaces often return to the case, reflecting on vulnerability, resilience, and the remarkable convergence of human persistence and technological capability. The term cold case had evolved, becoming a symbol of the enduring struggle between time deception and the eventual revelation of truth. Forensic specialists continued to illuminate the depth of investigation. DNA samples, once degraded and insufficient, were now conclusive through advanced techniques. Fiber soil and trace evidence, meticulously cross-referenced, provided a precise reconstruction of the suspect's interactions and proximity to Mary's final location. Observers could almost feel the long years of uncertainty dissipating, replaced by the chilling clarity of methodical analysis. The courtroom became a theater where scientific precision, human observation, and decades of perseverance intersected, demonstrating the relentless pursuit of justice. Psychologists provided insight into the suspect's behavior, highlighting his capacity for strategic concealment, manipulation, and the exploitation of ordinary appearances. Detectives and prosecutors illustrated how these behavioral patterns aligned with the forensic evidence, forming a multidimensional narrative that revealed not only the crime itself, but the mindset that had allowed it to remain hidden for so long. Each explanation added to the tension, deepening the audience's understanding of the meticulous planning and calculated patience required to commit and conceal such a crime. Witnesses recounted seemingly minor observations that in retrospect became pivotal. A delivery van parked at unusual hours, distant figures glimpsed from windows, subtle irregularities in neighborhood activity. When integrated with forensic data, these details painted a precise map of opportunity timing and human movement. Detectives retraced the crime scene, reevaluated environmental conditions, and reconstructed interactions, demonstrating the extraordinary diligence and analytic rigor necessary to solve a case dormant for 25 years. Each layer of revelation brought the story closer to a complete, though still emotionally charged, understanding. Mary's family absorbed the unfolding details with a complex mixture of relief, grief, and enduring sorrow. Every carefully presented fact served as a reminder of loss, but also as a testament to the persistence and dedication of the investigative team. Observing the culmination of years of painstaking work, the family witnessed the convergence of human effort, forensic advancement, and methodical analysis that finally illuminated truths long obscured. While the absence could never be remedied, the clarity offered a measure of closure and recognition for both the victim and those who had sought justice. Media coverage intensified, disseminating each development with urgency and immediacy. Headlines reflected both shock and vindication. Cold case breakthrough, DNA identifies suspect. After 25 years, Sacramento confronts decades-old mystery. Persistence and technology converge to solve long-standing disappearance. The community engaged in reflection discussions and cautious reassessment of everyday life, internalizing lessons about vulnerability observation and the slow but certain triumph of persistent investigation. The trial, broadcast widely and discussed endlessly, became a shared narrative that altered perception, behavior, and collective consciousness. As the narrative progressed, the courtroom transformed into a crucible of meticulous reconstruction, where evidence, memory, and expert analysis coalesced into a compelling revelation of truth. Every testimony, forensic demonstration, and behavioral insight built upon the last, reinforcing the profound impact of time, diligence, and technological innovation. Listeners were drawn deeper into the story, feeling the intensity of suspense, the weight of decades-long uncertainty, and the emotional resonance of a cold case finally coming into the light of understanding. The tension in the courtroom reached near unbearable levels as the prosecution meticulously presented the culmination of decades-long investigation, a mosaic of evidence, memory, and forensic precision that left no corner unexplored. Each fiber trace and DNA fragment was methodically analyzed, revealing a sequence of actions and decisions that, once pieced together, reconstructed Mary Callahan's final hours with startling clarity. Witness testimony interwove seamlessly with scientific analysis, creating a narrative of chilling inevitability, a reminder of the meticulous patience and cunning required to commit a crime that had evaded resolution for 25 years. Mary's character and daily life were brought vividly to life, painting the image of a young woman whose routines, friendships, and interactions rendered her disappearance all the more incomprehensible. Each recollection, each photograph, each anecdote underscored the stark contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary, the mundane and the malevolent. Detectives highlighted how seemingly trivial details, an unexpected pause on a street, a shadow seen from a window, the timing of a routine errand served as critical data points, each contributing to the eventual reconstruction of events and the identification of the perpetrator. Sacramento itself seemed to hold its breath, the city collectively absorbed in the unfolding trial. Citizens followed every detail through live broadcasts, social media, and personal conversations, the term cold case taking on a new resonance as both a symbol of prolonged uncertainty and the triumph of persistent human effort. Parents, neighbors, and colleagues discussed the subtle dangers embedded in ordinary life, recognizing the extraordinary lengths to which patient's observation and technology could bring hidden truths to light. The city's streets, once familiar and comforting, now carried an undertone of vigilance, a quiet recognition of the thin line separating safety from threat. Forensic evidence continued to dominate the courtroom proceedings. Advanced DNA analysis, fiber comparison, and environmental forensics were displayed in detailed presentations, each step demonstrating the connection between historical oversight and modern precision. Every minor anomaly once overlooked now resonated with undeniable significance. The courtroom audience could almost feel the years of uncertainty evaporate as hidden patterns emerged. The convergence of science, memory, and detective work forming an unassailable narrative of truth and discovery. The suspect, while maintaining a controlled exterior, displayed fleeting signs of tension, a micro-expression here, a delayed response. There, subtle indicators that seasoned investigators could interpret as anxiety under scrutiny. Psychologists analyzed these behaviors, linking them to traits of meticulous planning, social manipulation, and exploitation of ordinary appearances to conceal extraordinary malevolence. The prosecution skillfully intertwined these psychological insights with the forensic and testimonial evidence, creating a multidimensional understanding of both the crime and the criminal mind that had orchestrated it. Witnesses contributed critical observations that, when combined with forensic data, revealed patterns of timing, movement, and interaction. A delivery truck parked at atypical times, a distant figure glimpsed from a window, the echo of voices in an otherwise silent neighborhood. All these fragments coalesced into a precise reconstruction of opportunity and action. Detectives retraced each step, noting environmental factors, spatial relations, and temporal cues, demonstrating the extraordinary diligence and analytical rigor that had brought a long-dormant case into the light. Every piece of evidence reinforced the narrative of patient's observation and methodical investigation. Mary's family experienced a spectrum of emotions, relief that justice was finally within reach, sorrow at the decades of absence, and enduring grief for the life lost. The courtroom allowed them to witness the painstaking efforts of investigators, the careful assembly of evidence, and the precision of forensic reconstruction. While time lost could never be regained, the unfolding clarity offered a form of closure, a recognition of both the crime endured and the persistent pursuit of truth that had ultimately prevailed. The media amplified each development, broadcasting every detail, image, and statement with urgency. Headlines reflected both revelation and vindication. Cold case breakthrough, decades-old mystery solved through DNA. Sacramento confronts long-hidden truth. Persistence of investigation restores clarity after 25 years. The city absorbed these developments, reflecting on the delicate interplay of human observation, technological capability, and the slow but unstoppable march of justice. The narrative became a collective experience, a shared reckoning with past deception and present understanding. The courtroom fell into a tense, almost palpable silence as the final pieces of evidence were presented, each one a link in the chain that had been meticulously forged over 25 years. Detectives recounted the culmination of exhaustive investigations, the re-examination of old leads, the integration of modern forensic techniques, and the painstaking analysis of behavioral patterns that finally illuminated the darkness surrounding Mary Callahan's disappearance. Every detail, from a microscopic fiber to a subtle witness observation, was laid bare, forming a narrative of precision, patience, and relentless pursuit that had persevered against the erosion of time. Mary's presence, once absent, was reconstructed through layers of testimony, photographs, and forensic documentation. Friends and family recounted the ordinary moments that defined her life, highlighting the stark contrast between her vibrant existence and the void left by her disappearance. Each memory, each anecdote became a vital part of the evidence, underscoring the profound human loss at the center of this cold case. Detectives and prosecutors emphasized how these seemingly ordinary details, when examined in context, revealed patterns that pointed decisively to the suspect transforming the intangible grief of decades into tangible proof of wrongdoing. The suspect's composure, measured and controlled, occasionally faltered under the relentless scrutiny of evidence and testimony. Subtle expressions, a fleeting grimace, a delayed blink, a hesitation in posture betrayed the underlying tension cues that seasoned observers could read as cracks in a facade of calculated calm. Behavioral analysts elaborated on the suspect's meticulous planning, strategic concealment, and manipulation of appearances, demonstrating how ordinary behaviors had been weaponized to evade detection for decades. These insights, when combined with the meticulous forensic record, painted a chilling portrait of both the crime and the criminal mind that had executed it. The reconstruction of Mary's final movements was presented with cinematic clarity, the interplay of light and shadow along suburban streets, the timing of passing vehicles, the precise moments of observation and concealment. Each forensic element, from DNA evidence to environmental traces, was meticulously correlated with witness accounts and technological analysis, forming an unbroken narrative of the crime. Listeners could envision the final hours, the tense choreography of opportunity and action, and the interplay between ordinary environments and hidden malevolence. The story was immersive, drawing the audience into a lived experience of suspense, revelation, and reflection. Mary's family absorbed the culmination of the trial with a complex mix of emotions. Relief mingled with grief, and closure was tempered by the recognition of years lost and experiences denied. The meticulous presentation of evidence allowed them to witness the long arc of justice bending toward resolution, a testament to human persistence, forensic innovation, and ethical diligence. Their presence underscored the human dimension of the narrative. The lives affected, the grief endured, and the eventual reckoning that brought clarity to a shadowed chapter of their lives. Media coverage amplified the impact of the conclusion. Headlines declared, "Cold case resolved. DNA breakthrough brings 25-year-old mystery to light. Sacramento witnesses justice after decades-long pursuit." Persistence and technology converged to unveil hidden truth. The community reflected on the fragility of safety, the hidden dangers within familiar spaces, and the remarkable power of human observation, patience, and innovation to illuminate truths once thought inaccessible. Ordinary streets, once unremarkable, were now imbued with a subtle sense of awareness, a reminder that vigilance and persistence can restore clarity to even the most enduring mysteries. As the final arguments were presented, the courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath. Detectives highlighted the meticulous timeline, the convergence of forensic and behavioral evidence, and the profound significance of even the smallest details. The narrative was complete, a seamless integration of human insight, technological advancement, and investigative persistence. Each element reinforced the chilling reality of hidden malevolence and the eventual triumph of diligence over time, creating a powerful culmination of suspense, revelation, and emotional resonance. Listeners were drawn fully into the story's conclusion, experiencing the tension, discovery, and emotional weight of a cold case resolved after decades of uncertainty. The voiceover carried the audience through the final unraveling of events, the human and technological forces at work, and the profound resonance of justice finally achieved. Mary Callahan's story, reconstructed with precision and empathy, left a lingering imprint of suspense, closure, and haunting reflection. The trial concluded, but the echoes of the case reverberated beyond the walls of the courtroom. Sacramento, forever changed, carried the memory of mystery, loss, and revelation. The narrative of the cold case, now illuminated, served as a testament to the relentless pursuit of truth. The unyielding application of human and scientific endeavor, and the emotional complexity of justice delayed yet ultimately delivered. In the end, the story remained both a warning and a tribute, a reminder of the shadows that can hide in plain sight, and of the enduring capacity of perseverance and insight to bring them into the light. The aftermath of the trial unfolded like a slow ripple across Sacramento, the city grappling with the revelation of long-hidden truths and the emotional weight carried for decades. Streets once familiar now seemed haunted by memory. Neighbors recounted the events of 25 years ago with renewed clarity, and conversations lingered on the chilling realization of how easily danger had been concealed within the ordinary. The term cold case had transformed in the public consciousness, no longer merely a technical phrase, but a symbol of persistence, human ingenuity, and the ultimate triumph of diligence over time and deception. Mary Callahan's family, while relieved that justice had been formally acknowledged, confronted the long shadow of absence that no verdict could erase. Each day carried echoes of what had been lost moments she would never experience, milestones missed, and conversations left unspoken. Yet within that sorrow lay the fragile seed of closure, a recognition that truth had emerged, that the painstaking work of investigators and scientists had illuminated the darkness, and that her story at last was complete. They became ambassadors of memory, sharing Mary's life with the community, ensuring that her presence would endure beyond tragedy. The investigative team reflected on the extraordinary convergence of patients' insight and technology that had brought resolution. Years of cold trails, overlooked leads, and inconclusive evidence were transformed into an unassailable chain of discovery through modern DNA analysis, meticulous reconstruction, and unwavering persistence. Detectives, forensic experts, and behavioral analysts understood that each detail, no matter how minute, had contributed to a tapestry of truth. Their work had demonstrated that time, though long, was not an impenetrable barrier when dedication and skill were applied with relentless focus. Media coverage continued to amplify the societal impact. Local and national outlets revisited the case, dissecting its complexities and highlighting the breakthroughs that led to resolution. Headlines reflected awe and reflection. Sacramento remembers, Mary Callahan cold case solved. After 25 years, decades of mystery illuminate resilience of investigative teams, community confronts hidden truths, and the triumph of persistence. Citizens shared stories, revisited memories, and examined their own neighborhoods with heightened awareness, reflecting on how ordinary routines could conceal extraordinary narratives. Educational institutions and law enforcement agencies began to reference the case as a study in patience, meticulous analysis, and interdisciplinary cooperation. The blending of forensic science, psychological insight, and careful investigative strategy became a model for cold case resolution worldwide. Detectives emphasized the importance of never dismissing small anomalies, of valuing witness accounts even decades old, and of continually applying evolving technology to revisit unsolved mysteries. The lessons extended beyond the immediate case, providing a blueprint for future efforts in justice and investigation. Psychological and social analyses of the case underscored the long-term impact of unresolved crimes on communities. Fear, speculation, and rumor had permeated Sacramento for decades, affecting relationships, neighborhood dynamics, and collective consciousness. With resolution, the community experienced a nuanced catharsis relief, tempered by the awareness of vulnerability, the acknowledgement of the hidden, and the recognition of the profound human effort required to restore clarity and justice. The emotional landscape of the city remained altered, the memory of the case a permanent marker of vigilance, resilience, and empathy. The suspect's conviction, while delivering formal justice, also provoked contemplation of human behavior and morality. Experts explored the intricacies of premeditation, concealment, and the psychological mechanisms that allowed a person to evade detection for so long. The courtroom had illuminated not only the procedural and forensic dimensions of crime, but also the enduring complexity of human decision-making, the capacity for deception, and the societal imperative to remain vigilant yet compassionate. These reflections contributed to a broader dialogue on justice, accountability, and the interplay of human cognition and forensic science. Community memorials, public discussions, and local initiatives emerged in response to the case. Tributes to Mary Callahan celebrated her life and resilience, while educational programs emphasized awareness, observation, and civic responsibility. The narrative of the cold case became interwoven with civic identity, demonstrating the interplay between personal loss, collective memory, and societal vigilance. Sacramento Forever changed, embraced the duality of mourning and empowerment, acknowledging the pain of decades-long uncertainty, while celebrating the triumph of persistence, knowledge, and justice. Listeners of the voiceover would experience a seamless extension of the story, absorbing the lingering resonance of the case. The emotional aftermath, the societal implications, and the human lessons embedded within years of unresolved tension and eventual revelation. The narrative emphasized the enduring impact of truth, the capacity of persistence to overcome time, and the profound emotional and cultural ripples generated by the resolution of a cold case. Even after the courtroom emptied, the echoes of Mary Callahan's story reverberated through Sacramento, threading themselves into the fabric of everyday life. Streets and neighborhoods carried the quiet weight of memory. Ordinary places now seemed charged with the latent tension of what had transpired years before. Residents walked past familiar houses, recalling fleeting observations, strange encounters, and unanswered questions that had haunted the city for decades. Conversations shifted toward reflection awareness and the subtle ways ordinary routines can mask extraordinary events. The term cold case was no longer just procedural jargon. It had become a symbol of vigilance, persistence, and the enduring human capacity to uncover hidden truths. Mary's family moved through the days with a mixture of relief and lingering sorrow. The trial had provided validation and closure, but it could not restore lost time, lost experiences, or stolen moments. Still, each remembrance of Mary's laughter, kindness, and daily life was infused with purpose. They became keepers of her story, sharing memories with the community, and ensuring that her presence, though tragically cut short, would endure. Their journey illustrated the complex interplay between grief, justice, and resilience, highlighting the human capacity to find meaning and continuity even in the wake of devastating loss. Law enforcement teams reflected on the case with a profound sense of achievement and humility. Years of painstaking work revisiting leads, reanalyzing evidence, and applying modern techniques had finally borne fruit. The integration of behavioral analysis, forensic innovation, and meticulous detective work offered a roadmap for future investigations. Each overlooked detail, every minor anomaly had contributed to the eventual breakthrough, demonstrating that diligence, patience, and technological advancement are critical in the pursuit of justice, even when time seems to have obscured the path. The broader community engaged in dialogue about vigilance, safety, and collective responsibility. Discussions emerged on how ordinary life can hide subtle threats, how awareness and observation can prevent future tragedies, and how communal attention can reinforce the social fabric. Sacramento, scarred yet strengthened by the long unsolved mystery, embraced a cautious optimism, recognizing that knowledge, preparation, and empathy are essential tools in safeguarding individuals and communities alike. Educational programs and law enforcement initiatives began referencing the case as a model for cold case resolution. Students and trainees studied the meticulous reconstruction of Mary's final hours, the application of forensic techniques to decades-old evidence, and the integration of behavioral profiling to create a multi-dimensional understanding of the suspect. The story became a touchstone for investigative methodology, emphasizing the importance of persistence, critical thinking, and the thoughtful application of technology in complex cases. The lessons extended beyond criminal investigation, offering insights into problem-solving, attention to detail, and ethical responsibility. Psychological experts reflected on the impact of long unsolved cases on both communities and individuals. Fear, speculation, and the shadow of uncertainty had pervaded Sacramento for decades. The resolution brought a nuanced sense of closure, a combination of relief, reflection, and heightened awareness of the delicate balance between trust, vigilance, and safety. The community's collective psyche had been shaped by decades of ambiguity, and the revelation of truth allowed for a recalibration of perception, understanding, and cautious engagement with the surrounding world. Mary's legacy became intertwined with public consciousness. Memorials, public discussions, and community initiatives emphasized remembrance awareness and preventive vigilance. The narrative of her cold case served as a cautionary tale and a celebration of the triumph of dedication and technological innovation. Ordinary citizens, now more attuned to subtle irregularities in their environments, internalized lessons of observation persistence and the importance of bringing light to what was hidden. The city carried the knowledge that even the most deeply concealed truths could eventually emerge under the weight of persistent inquiry. The suspect's conviction underscored the multifaceted nature of justice. While formal resolution brought accountability, the case illuminated the complexity of human behavior, the strategies of concealment, and the power of analytical rigor to pierce deception. Experts emphasize the intersection of behavior evidence and human observation, showing how each layer of investigation contributed to the ultimate revelation of truth. The trial, though concluded, left an enduring imprint on both the legal community and public consciousness. Listeners of the voiceover were drawn into this lingering resonance, experiencing the aftermath, societal reflection, and emotional ramifications of a cold case solved after decades of uncertainty. The narrative highlighted the interplay of science psychology, persistence, and human empathy, demonstrating how justice can be achieved even after years of obscurity. The audience was left with a sense of both awe and introspection, reflecting on the hidden complexities of ordinary life, the capacity for human perseverance, and the enduring power of truth. Even months after the trial, Sacramento remained quietly altered the memory of Mary Callahan's cold case, lingering in the minds of residents and law enforcement alike. Local newspapers revisited the details. Community centers hosted discussions on vigilance and safety, and neighborhood watch programs saw renewed participation. The city, once unaware of the subtle vulnerabilities within its streets, now carried a heightened awareness, a silent acknowledgement that ordinary life can mask extraordinary acts. Conversations turned reflective neighbors spoke of small observations once dismissed. Community members shared lessons learned, and an invisible web of attention began to form across the city's landscape. Mary's family, though still carrying the weight of decades-long loss, began to find ways to honor her memory actively. They worked with local schools and civic organizations to share her story, emphasizing resilience awareness and the importance of community in safeguarding individuals. Each recollection of her laughter, kindness, and presence became part of a larger narrative connecting the personal tragedy to broader societal lessons. The family's journey illustrated the intersection of grief, closure, and empowerment, showing that while time cannot restore what was lost, it can channel memory into enduring influence. Law enforcement officers reflected on the unprecedented scope and complexity of the investigation. The integration of modern forensic techniques, behavioral profiling, and meticulous attention to previously overlooked details became a benchmark for future cold case investigations. Teams documented methods, breakthroughs, and analytical strategies, transforming the Mary Callahan case into a reference model for law enforcement agencies across the nation. The narrative of persistence, technological application, and human insight demonstrated that even decades of obfuscation could be pierced with dedication, rigor, and innovative approaches. The city's collective consciousness carried forward a mix of reflection, vigilance, and cautious optimism. Citizens understood that danger can often hide in plain sight, that subtle anomalies merit attention, and that community awareness can contribute to both prevention and resolution of crime. Public discussions emphasized empathy alongside vigilance. Understanding human behavior, supporting victims' families, and encouraging civic responsibility became central themes in schools, workplaces, and social gatherings. The case, while resolved, continued to shape behaviors, priorities, and community identity. Educational institutions incorporated the case into curricula, highlighting the interplay between forensic science, psychology, and investigative diligence. Students learned not only about technological breakthroughs, but also about the ethical responsibility inherent in pursuing justice. The Mary Callahan case became an exemplar for analytical reasoning, patience, and interdisciplinary collaboration. It offered a lesson in persistence that truth, no matter how deeply buried or obscured by time, can emerge when human effort and scientific advancement converge. Psychological experts discuss the long-term community impact, analyzing how unresolved mysteries foster fear, speculation, and uncertainty. With resolution, Sacramento experienced a shift toward cautious relief, an acknowledgement of past vulnerabilities combined with recognition of the power of human perseverance. Communities reflected on their own observational practices, the importance of maintaining awareness, and the moral responsibility to act on irregularities. The city became an exemplar of collective learning, demonstrating how both individuals and groups internalize lessons from complex human events. Mary's legacy continued to influence cultural narratives. Community events, memorials, and local media emphasized both her life and the painstaking pursuit of justice. The story of a cold case solved after decades of uncertainty provided a compelling illustration of resilience, human ingenuity, and ethical commitment. Ordinary citizens, now more alert and reflective, internalized these lessons, recognizing that vigilance, observation, and methodical action can illuminate hidden truths and prevent future tragedies. The suspect's conviction served as a tangible reminder of accountability and the reach of justice. Experts highlighted how psychological profiling, forensic rigor, and the integration of long-term investigative strategies converged to overcome the obscuring effects of time. The trial underscored the complexity of human behavior and the necessity of persistent inquiry. Listeners of the voiceover would feel the continued resonance of these lessons, understanding that the path to justice is rarely linear, but is always achievable with patience, insight, and determination. As the voiceover narrative progressed, it emphasized the enduring emotional and social resonance of Mary Callahan's cold case. Listeners were drawn into the reflections of a community forever changed, law enforcement forever challenged, and a family forever carrying the weight of loss alongside the solace of resolution. The story transcended the crime itself, exploring themes of human resilience, collective responsibility, and the enduring impact of truth revealed. Time continued its steady march, but the echoes of Mary Callahan's cold case remained vivid in Sacramento, a lingering reminder of the fragility and resilience woven into everyday life. The city, once complacent in routine, now carried an unspoken vigilance, a heightened awareness of the delicate balance between safety and the unseen dangers that could lurk within the ordinary. Conversations in homes, cafes, and workplaces returned repeatedly to lessons learned, the importance of observation, the weight of minor anomalies, and the profound impact of persistent inquiry on both individual and community well-being. Mary's family, while still bearing the weight of loss, actively channeled their grief into advocacy and remembrance. Through public events, educational initiatives, and personal outreach, they ensured that Mary's story remained a living lesson in resilience, justice, and the enduring power of memory. Each anecdote of her daily life, her laughter, her interactions was shared not only to honor her presence, but to reinforce the critical societal lessons derived from her disappearance and the eventual resolution of the cold case. Their engagement bridged personal tragedy and public awareness, demonstrating how human grief can transform into collective empowerment. Law enforcement agencies reflected on the extraordinary scope and methodology of the investigation. The seamless integration of behavioral profiling, forensic science, and revisitation of historical leads became a model for future cold case investigations. The success of the Mary Callahan case underscored that persistence, innovation, and meticulous attention to detail could overcome decades of uncertainty. Teams documented strategies, breakthroughs, and analytical techniques, creating a framework that would guide future generations of investigators in solving even the most complex, long-dormant cases. The city itself adapted to the resonance of the case. Neighborhood watch programs, community safety initiatives, and local educational programs flourished in the aftermath, informed by the lessons of vigilance, observation, and proactive engagement. Residents, informed by both the emotional gravity of Mary's story and the procedural rigor of the investigation, internalized a subtle yet powerful awareness that ordinary environments could conceal extraordinary risks, and that their attentiveness could contribute to both prevention and resolution of future incidents. Psychologists and sociologists continued to study the long-term impact of the cold case on collective consciousness. Decades of uncertainty had fostered subtle fear speculation and anxiety within the community. The eventual resolution offered a nuanced relief blending validation and closure with a sobering awareness of past vulnerabilities. The interplay of grief relief and societal reflection highlighted how deeply unsolved crimes affect both individuals and communities, and how resolution, though partial, can restore a measure of balance and understanding. Educational programs incorporated the Mary Callahan case as a benchmark for investigative strategy, forensic application, and ethical responsibility. Students and trainees examined the reconstruction of her final hours, the behavioral analysis of the suspect, and the methodical approach to piecing together decades-old evidence. The case illustrated the synergy of technology, human observation, and analytical reasoning, providing a multidimensional model for approaching complex problems, whether in law enforcement or other domains requiring meticulous investigation and critical thinking. Mary's legacy became enshrined in civic memory, a story simultaneously cautionary and inspiring. Public discussions, memorial events, and media reflections emphasized resilience, vigilance, and the persistence of truth. Citizens internalize the broader lesson that persistence, attention, and ethical diligence can illuminate hidden realities even after decades of concealment. The narrative transcended its origins as a criminal investigation, evolving into a societal touchstone for awareness, preparedness, and the triumph of human effort against obfuscation. The convicted suspect's presence in the legal and cultural narrative served as a continuing reminder of accountability and the necessity of persistent pursuit of justice. Experts highlighted how meticulous reconstruction, forensic innovation, and psychological insight converged to reveal truth long concealed. The case demonstrated the interplay between evidence, human behavior, and technological advancement, leaving listeners with a profound understanding of both human complexity and the power of methodical inquiry. Listeners of the voiceover were drawn into the resonance of this continued aftermath, experiencing the societal, emotional, and procedural echoes of a cold case solved after decades of uncertainty. The narrative emphasized the enduring human, technological, and communal efforts that transform tragedy into awareness, grief into action, and hidden truths into revelation. Audiences were left with a lasting sense of reflection, vigilance, and appreciation for the persistence required to bring resolution to a long unsolved mystery. The echoes of Mary Callahan's story persisted long after the trial, infiltrating the collective consciousness of Sacramento and leaving an indelible mark on its streets and its people. Ordinary locations, parks, sidewalks, neighborhoods seemed to pulse with the memory of what had transpired. Subtle reminders that the ordinary can conceal extraordinary events. Residents walked with heightened awareness, attuned to irregularities once dismissed, internalizing lessons of vigilance and attentiveness. Conversations were suffused with reflection, recounting past suspicions, unusual observations, and the cautionary wisdom that comes from decades of unresolved mystery. Mary's family, their grief tempered by the relief of resolution, transformed their sorrow into advocacy, remembrance, and education. Through public talks, memorial events, and school programs, they conveyed not just the tragedy of loss, but the enduring lessons of persistence, observation, and community engagement. Their actions ensured that Mary's memory remained active, her presence a catalyst for societal awareness and empowerment, demonstrating that personal tragedy can evolve into collective vigilance and positive influence. Law enforcement officers continued to study the case, using the Mary Callahan investigation as a benchmark for future cold cases. The blending of behavioral analysis, forensic science, and methodical re-examination of old leads offered a replicable model for unraveling mysteries long dormant. Each overlooked clue, every minor detail, and every witness account contributed to a larger mosaic of truth, proving that perseverance and innovation could overcome the obfuscation of decades. The lessons learned extended beyond the immediate case, influencing investigative protocols and shaping the training of future detectives. The city's social fabric absorbed the reverberations of the case. Community engagement increased with neighborhood watch programs, public safety initiatives, and educational campaigns fostering a heightened sense of collective responsibility. Citizens internalized the reality that ordinary life can mask hidden threats, and that awareness, vigilance, and timely action are critical in maintaining safety. The cold case became a shared story, a cautionary and instructive narrative that resonated across families, schools, and workplaces. Psychologists and sociologists reflected on the long-term impact of unresolved crime on communities, noting the subtle yet profound effects of fear, speculation, and uncertainty. The resolution provided a nuanced relief, blending validation, closure, and ongoing awareness. Sacramento experienced a recalibration of perception, a recognition that the past cannot be changed, but that the lessons derived can inform future vigilance and decision-making. The interplay of grief relief and collective insight underscored the deep human consequences of cold cases and the importance of persistent inquiry. Educational institutions leveraged the case to teach interdisciplinary problem-solving, ethical responsibility, and critical analysis. Students explored forensic reconstruction, behavioral profiling, and investigative methodology, seeing firsthand the convergence of science, human observation, and persistent effort. The Mary Callahan case served as a tangible example of the potential for methodical investigation to illuminate hidden truths, even when obscured for decades, demonstrating the enduring relevance of persistence analysis and ethical diligence. Mary's legacy became a touchstone in the community. Her story, memorialized through events, media, and educational programs, highlighted resilience, vigilance, and the eventual triumph of justice. Citizens informed and reflective internalized lessons on observation awareness and community engagement. The narrative transcended the individual tragedy, becoming a societal lesson in the power of truth, diligence, and persistent human effort. The convicted suspect's presence in ongoing discourse emphasized accountability and the enduring relevance of justice. Behavioral analysis, forensic validation, and investigative methodology showcased the multifaceted approach that had finally unraveled decades of mystery. The case illustrated the intersection of human psychology, empirical evidence, and technological advancement, offering profound insights into both the nature of crime and the tools necessary to reveal it. For listeners of the Cinematic Voiceover Part 16, deepened the sense of resonance, exploring societal, emotional, and procedural consequences of a cold case solved after decades. The story emphasized the continuity of human effort, the enduring impact on community consciousness, and the transformative power of persistent inquiry. Audiences experienced the sustained tension, reflection, and emotional weight that define the aftermath of long-resolved mysteries.